Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the first inaugural the very first Colleens with Coffee podcast. Now, if you're not a Colleen and you don't have coffee, ask yourself, what are you doing here? That's all I want to know. But this will be a rather informal affair, a rather, look at me, I'm recording something and I have something to say, but not really, sort of an affair. The sort of thing you might like with a coffee first thing in the morning. No, don't get too excited. We're not going to be getting too production value-y. I've set up some lights. Alright? Okay. But let's not get too excited. I'm not going to be doing any green screenery. Okay? There's not going to be any motion graphics here. There's not going to be any of that. Okay? There might be some comping. Today's episode, a very special episode. Kenny Rogers, the gambler. We all know this song. We all know this fella. We all know this story. We think we do. What if, and I'm just chucking ideas around here, what if Kenny Rogers is the victim in The Gambler? Alright, now you say to yourself, Kenny Rogers, he is the protagonist in that thing. How could he possibly be the victim? Well, I put it to you. He's the victim, he doesn't even know it. He wrote a song about this time. Now, this is Kenny Rogers, the character, the person who's telling the story of this gambler on this train this evening, right? Not Kenny Rogers, the country singer, who, you know, I'm sure is a lovely fella and doesn't get duped by these kinds of fucking, you know, con men on trains that often. So when I'm talking about Kenny, largely I'm going to be talking about Kenny, the narrator of this here tune. Now, I want to tell you that Kenny didn't even know that he got played. That's how smooth this fucking gambler is. Let's examine the evidence, right? On a warm summer's evening, on a train bound for nowhere, I met up with a gambler. We were both too tired to speak, so we took turns of staring out the window at the darkness till boredom overtook us. He began to speak. Right? This gambler's been sitting there watching this guy for the past couple of hours, hasn't he? He's been watching him. He's been saying, this cunt, look at him, staring out the window like a chump. I got this cunt's number. I'm going to take this cunt for what he's worth. What, he's got whiskey there? Yeah, all right. Let's sort this out. Yeah, all right. No worries. Now, I'm going to say to you that it isn't necessarily that this man is not a gambler. And I'm not necessarily saying to you that he doesn't make his living the way he says he does. But there's nothing to say that any of the rest of it is true. Okay? So, get this going. I want to get these lyrics right for you because I tell you what, it's very important, each lyric being more important than the previous. He says, son, I made a life, how to read in people's faces, knowing what the cards were by the way they held their eyes. Now, I think that much is true, right? He's done that. He's shown us that he's done that with Kenny, right? He's been watching him. He's been doing this thing. And if you don't mind me saying, I can see you're out of aces. For a taste of your whiskey, I'll give you some advice. He's already starting, right? This is not free advice. So this gambler fella, he's the only active participant. Kenny is this passive receiver of everything the gambler has to say. We sat there staring out the window, right? Till boredom overtook us and he began to speak. Boredom overtook him, or not so much boredom as his time to strike was at hand. Now, if we go then to the aces, the whiskey, right? Now, of course, this is a train in the 1800s. Like, we've all seen The Gambler Part 7 or whatever on fucking, like, Turner Classic Movies. There are a lot of these gambler movies, but they're semi-westerns. They're clean westerns. They're bright red westerns. You know, back when red was a hard colour to have, but everyone seemed to have clean whites and bright reds, and the dirt never got turned into mud, and the animal shit was nowhere to be found. Those kind of westerns, you know? You pre-Deadwoods. You pre-HBO in-your-face grit. How much grit can we possibly stand? Because grit turns into gore, like, man. Like, The Boys was gritty, wasn't it? And then next minute, it's wooey. You gotta. I don't mind gore. It's body horror, and there is a big difference. But anyway, stay on target. So first thing he's done is he's traded him this just to hear the rest of what he's got to say. So I handed him my bottle, and he drank down my last swallow. Then he bummed a cigarette and asked me for a light. Right? He's done it again. Right? So he's already made one deal. He's broken the deal, made it just encroach slightly further. He's like a pickup artist, right? He's like any con man. It's how far can you push each little interaction before the next thing you know, it's where you want it to be. Right? And the night got deathly quiet, and his face lost all expression. So if you're gonna play the game, boy, you better learn to play it right. This is like that episode of, I don't know if you've seen fucking, I can't even think of the name of the goddamn thing now. Fucking hell, what's that goddamn show called? Memory. Show. It's got Adam Scott in it. It's got fucking like, heaps of motherfuckers in it. Party Down. Alright. Yeah. The guy that tries to teach him the blues, but he's just a dentist, right? But you got to suffer to get the blues, right? This whole like leave him outside for 3 days without food or encouragement, you know. You've got to be in for something. You've got to have skin in the game in order to want to learn from this guy. It's a form of buyer's remorse, or a form of the sunk cost fallacy in a sense. It's like once you've bought in, well, I'm not a fool, and only a fool would pay for advice that wasn't true. So therefore, this advice is true. Humans, man. Humans gonna hume. What are you gonna do? So, and the night did get deathly quiet because he's played you to the point where now all you can see, you've just got the tunnel fucking vision, right? Instead of hearing all the train noises, this is humans. Again, he's just got the tunnel visions. He's listening to this guy because the gambler has made it seem like this ridiculous advice that he's about to dole out, which is the most trite. And yeah, I mean, it works in a lot of situations, but that's kind of what trite is, isn't it? It works everywhere. If you've got to play the game, you've got to learn to play it right. Now, this is not bad, right? You got to know when to hold 'em, know when to fold 'em, know when to walk away, know when to run. You never count your money when you're sitting at the table. There'll be time enough for counting when the dealing's done. Now every gambler knows. I wanted to do the change, but we're not going to go straight into that verse. So, you do got to know when to hold them, when to fold them. Now, this is the good advice section, but this is also continuing to play the dude, right? This is the gambler telling us what he's doing right now, okay? He knows when to walk away and when to run. He knows this is him explaining his whole process, which is actually some valid fucking advice. But soon enough, you'll see when he folds them, right? He walks away. He doesn't run. He just walks away in this context. He just lays down and pretends to go to fucking sleep and die. Motherfucker's not dead. He's just waiting to do this to the next chump, right? Anyway. Now every gambler knows that the secret to surviving is knowing what to throw away and knowing what to keep. I don't know why this tab doesn't want me to do a C7 there, just for you guys. It just wants to tell me 7, but there was a B7 a minute ago, so I don't fucking know. I'm going to sing the 7. I'm going to sing that goddamn B. I know it's a B flat, I want to sing in it. I want a C7. Yeah. I've played music before, whatever. Meanwhile, at the ranch, 'cause every hand's a winner, and every hand's a loser. Best you can hope for is to die in your sleep. Okay, there we come into some interesting. Every hand is not a winner, and every hand is not a loser, right? I understand that it's all about how you play those hands, and as a poker metaphor, it's probably more accurate than all that. But the thing is, even within poker, there are hands that are unbeatable. And if you're dealt that hand, you are unbeatable unless you absolutely decide to fold for no fucking reason. I'm not a poker player. I believe it's a royal flush, straight flush, pink flush, I don't know, ruddy flush. I don't know what it is. But it's, if you get dealt that just off out of the gate, anyway, that's fine. I suppose I can think of ways in which you wouldn't make as much money if it was obvious you had a hand you already liked. No one would bet against you if you didn't ask for any cards, in which case you fucked up your whole thing. But surely whereas the other hands can be played as a bluff, but a bluff is not the same thing as actually a winner, is it? Like, a bluff can work under certain situations. A bluff is a fake Rolex, right? A bluff is mutton dressed as ham. A bluff is something you can make work sometimes, but they will get called. That hand is not a winner. That hand can be fucking like squeezed through the like die of a winner in the winner extrusion machine where you make the winner pasta and you winner aluminium shit. But I gotta tell you, that's not the same thing as a winner at all, right? Anyway, the best you can hope for is to die in your sleep. That is true. That is the best you can probably hope for, But, I heard a disturbing fact. No one really dies in their sleep, apparently. Some people might, but it's largely it's a waking up and being, agony for a moment affair usually, which is a bit sad. Sorry to bust your balls on that one if that was something that you were like holding on to and someone died peacefully in their sleep. It might be the case with opiates and overdoses in general. That shit might actually be, relatively peaceful or something. I don't know. But, yeah. Anyway. And somewhere in the darkness, the gambler, he broke even. And in his final words, I found an ace that I could keep. You got to know when to hold him. When to hold him. Okay. That gambler pretended to fall asleep and is about to go as soon as this jackass gets off at his stop, walk up to the next fuckwit and do the same thing again, get some more whiskey, get some more cigarettes, and potentially do it even bigger. This man is nothing but someone who's trying to play our mate Kenny. Anyway, I gotta tell you, those gambler things, they were really flogging a dead horse after 3. Did you ever actually catch the Gambler Part 4 or 5? Like I did. I don't know why. I liked Kenny Rogers there for a bit. He was alright, He had personality. Personality goes a long way. Here's one for you. So there was a studio down in here in Hobart Town, once upon a time, called Red Planet. And at Red Planet, there was a gentleman named Jake Long. And Jake Long, who is a good friend of mine, actually, but he, the console there was lovely old big fucker. I have no memory of exactly what brand it is off the top of my head. I should know. It was a Harrison, I think. Yeah, but I think it was a Harrison. Anyway, long story short, I remember when I first went in there, I met him once upon a time and we popped up to this studio and I'm like, oh, yeah, blah, 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 blah. Him not realizing I was a tracking engineer as well as, other things. And he, as I was talking about it, he was just like, you know how all this gear works? I went, yes, man. Yeah, it's sort of, yep. And he was like, oh, fuck, okay. And then we had the real conversation. It was fantastic. But it was one of those parts of Hobart it was one of those things that keeps me in Hobart. The serendipity of lack of choice, for want of a better term. The serendipity, the positive aspects of there being nothing but one place to go out or a few places to go out is there is an inadvertent and, unmitigated mixing of different, not just subcultures, because there really aren't that many fucking subcultures down here. There's some crusty IV drug using lunatics, and then there's some like very, very, I don't know, there are scene kids and there are fucking eshays and shit, but there's not like, hundreds of subcultures, and they intermix, and they have their own fucking theme songs and whatever. They don't. But that's what's kind of magical about it too. When there is something, it's sort of able to be found, and it isn't so niche. But anyway, turns out somehow through some tomfoolery and some business or other, the studio there, Jake's dad has Stuart, was trying to find, was owed money or something, I think, by Kenny Rogers' touring guy, and for some reason they'd brought this console to Australia to record while they were on tour or something from Kenny's studio in fucking Nashville or wherever the goddamn, I assume Nashville, I mean, what do you know, but I assume Nashville. And they then somehow incurred this debt. Go away, I know I'm working. Blah. They'd somehow incurred this debt to Stuart, I think for PA stuff or somehow gear of some kind. And he's wound up with this goddamn console. That's my understanding of the rock and roll folklore of this console. Point being that Kenny owned it in his studio at or about the time that The Gambler was recorded. And I've got to tell you, my heart just hopes, it hopes beyond hope, that is the console that recorded The Gambler. That'd make me very happy. And I haven't looked it up because I don't want to know that it was recorded at Cello Studios in LA or some shit. I don't need to know that. I'd rather believe it was the Harrison. That's much better. Much better rock and roll legend. But yeah, I believe, and here's the other thing, Jake is from Molesworth. Like, my ex-wife and I moved to Tasmania. Now, I know the one Colleen that this is for, just FYI, this has become, like, it's for all Colleens with coffee at this stage, I've branched out. I'm sorry, love. I'm sorry, Dal. It is what it is. But, yeah, so if it feels like I'm telling stories and backstories that you already know, obviously, well, this is because, it's not just you and me here anymore, Dal. This is on YouTube. Anyway, came to Tassie with my ex-wife, and, we had a limited budget, as people do. So we jumped on Gumtree and realestate.com.au and all the places, finding houses that maybe within... Look, there are cheaper houses in Australia. There were, as well, cheaper houses than the one we ended up in. However, there aren't cheaper houses within half an hour of a capital city. There aren't cheaper houses within, 45 or whatever. We chucked a few numbers around where we were at. Right. So I want to be blah distance from a capital city. I want to be blah distance from a this and a that and the other. And Hobart makes a good case of being a city where any of that is a thing that can be achieved, done, or otherwise, had. I mean, it's not, but let's be clear, it's not. But it makes a good case of being that. And so, yeah, on our way to researching all this, there was a place came up in Molesworth, and it seemed all right. Well, there was one came up in Collinsvale as well, but it didn't have any permits, and it was all fucking drink straight from the creek, and it was all very that. Yeah, and I'm a city boy. Just a city boy! I couldn't drink from the creek. Come on, man. I'm sure it was good creek water. I'm sure it was good mountain-ass creek water. Probably better than what comes out of the tap. Just not going to do it for me. I'm sorry. Single deddy up there. It's all I'll be thinking about. I can't do that. I need chlorine in my life, man. Or I'll be using Puritabs all the time or something. Boiling it, carrying on. Anyway. So we ditched on that, but the next best one was in Molesworth. And then, so many people in my life turn out to have had a Molesworth connection. Either people have not heard of where the fuck it is down here, or it's yeah, I grew up there. Huh, just around the corner from you. It's fuck off. It's nuts. Anyway, so move out, that situation didn't last. Wound up in the next... Moved to Hobart itself. Because, I hadn't actually lived in Hobart. I lived out in Molesworth for 2 years, but I was driving in every day, all that shit. So I wound up, lived in Glebe, just on the top of the hill. It was a great shit show. It was a fantastic shit show. And then wound up in another situation with a girl who was from Molesworth, literally a solid dead possum's hurl down the hill only. And... I wound up then 3 more years in that place in Molesworth. What are the fucking odds? And Jake's from Molesworth. the console's in Molesworth. Like, it's, it all ties together. Goddamn place. Yeah, it means good soil. I didn't find it to be that as much as some might have. In like Welshiness or Gaelic, I don't know, some fucking thing. But yeah, Molesworth. There's a Molesworth Street in North Melbourne, and there was a place there that when we were looking about 2004, a mate of mine described it as a dive, and I'll always think of Molesworth Street as just being filled with dives, although I don't think I've ever been into a place there. Yeah, it's a weird one, man, how a little nothing spot can become such a locus of so many things in a person's life. Kenny Rogers, for instance. Who knew he'd show up in Molesworth? Anyway, till your next coffee, and unless your name's Colleen, get out of here. What are you doing here? Yiggity yak, don't come back.